Welcome to Leonardtown, a small town in the heart of St. Mary's County, Maryland. This charming, walkable town is known for its beautiful landscapes, breathtaking waterways, and friendly, welcoming people. When you enter Leonardtown, you'll be transported back in time as you take in the quaint town square and historic buildings. But Leonardtown is undergoing a current renaissance of its downtown area, with the addition of an eclectic mix of specialty shops, galleries, and world-class restaurants. Join us for a journey in discovering Leonardtown, a most exceptional place.
Hello, my name is Alison Berry. I'm an artist at Northeam Gallery on Fenwick Street. As an artist, I find so much inspiration here. I want to take you for a close-up look at the arts and entertainment scene in Leonardtown. For a small town, there's so much to see and do, from the art galleries and workshops to the concerts, events, and more. So join me as we take a look at the big arts and entertainment scene in this small southern Maryland town. Next up on our tour is Northeam Gallery.
Hi, I'm Bea Poulin. You're here at the Northeam Gallery, and I'm the marketing director and member photographer. The gallery is not open right now, but we do have all our art here on the walls. And we also have it on our website at northeamgallery.com. You should try hard to keep art a part of your life. We are. We're painting, we're throwing pottery, we're making jewelry. We're doing all the things that we always did, but we're trying to find new ways to get them out to you so you can take a look and tell us what you think. Today in the gallery, the front room looks pretty much the same as it always does. Things are hanging on the wall. We have beautiful pottery, the clocks, prints, acrylics, oils, watercolors. And our current show with Mary Ida Roloff and Ann Preston is in the front window, along with a lot of other great pieces by our 25 members. Our Northeam Gallery is a co-op, and that is a group of people who work together to run their business. This show is an example of everybody working together to pull it off. But in the long term, the gallery's been around for over 30 years here in the Arts District in Leonardtown, and it's worked very hard to keep new art coming in, new artists coming in. So we're always looking for new exceptional talent to join us. So take a look today at our website, and I hope you enjoyed the video today that'll show you everything we have to offer. So in this corner we have a lot of vibrant glass from many different artists, including Mary Ida Roloff, who's done these beautiful fused glass pieces, and Lonnie Clark, who has been commissioned by the St. Mary's County Art Council to do the new branded logo for the district by Nell Elder, the executive director. She also has two traditional pieces of stained glass in the window here, but Lonnie's mostly known for her large installation pieces, private homes and offices. So if you're interested in something like that, you should look her up on our website. The little piece here, this little precious Degas replica, is Mary Ida Roloff's new series called Homage to the Masters. And there are several pieces at the front window. You have to look at these close, they're just beautiful. This beautiful piece is made by Dave Kelsey, who's our woodworker here at Northeam Gallery. He does a lot of different pieces, but this is one of the most exceptional. Blanket box, designed in following a custom design, a very old design, and it's solid mahogany. Really a beautiful piece that you should own in your home. I just want to point out the Polly Lang oil painting. It looks like these strawberries could be picked right out of the picture. They're so perfect. And then you go to her Cawlery, Italia picture, and when she traveled, she painted this. Two different styles, one artist, Polly Lang. Well, this is Toni Wolf's work, and she's a very interesting artist in that she likes to kayak and take her canvas out with her, and hopefully the wind is calm, and capture something out from her kayak. But then she does something like this, where she loves to find photographs of these exotic birds and paint them perfectly. And she's done several, and people who are bird watchers know that these are perfect pictures. So I want you to really look at this. Well, this is our Judith Conrad room. This room was named in honor of Judith Conrad and her husband Peter, who were part of the founding group of Northeam Gallery over 30 years ago. We love this room, and it's one of our favorite places to hold our receptions on First Fridays. Upon their death, they left this building to the co-op, to Northeam Gallery, with the request that St. Mary's Arts Council manage it. And that's what we're doing. We're in partnership with them now, and we're a very happy family. We have a number of paintings here and other pieces of pottery by many of our artists. If we just kind of go around the room, you will see acrylics by Tony Wolfe, oil paintings by Alison Berry, who's our plein air painter, and our serigrapher, Jeannie Hammett, who's also our president. She has several pieces here. The pottery is a combination of three of our potters, Sarah Hood, who's famous for her fish platters, and her raku throne pieces, and Helene Vonnegut does these beautiful Asian style platters and vases. We have the beautiful painting of Tommy by Nicole Stewart, oil painting that took her almost a year to complete. Christine Allen's oil paintings, and Ruth Collins' acrylic paintings of local scenes. She's quite famous for those. Betty Baumgartner with her oil paintings. So I joined the Northeam Gallery about 2 years ago as the only photographer presently as a member. And I've been exploring a new kind of concept for me. I've been taking pictures that end up looking like this. And this is a boat hull abstract, that's what I call it. This is a picture of the boat, if you can see it. And I focus in on what's below the waterline in here, and I take a series of pictures, and then I look at that on my Big Mac, my iMac, to see what's the most interesting part of it. What does it say? Does it have some interesting organic shapes? What is it? And it's the bottom paint that's coming off in different ways, and it's out there on a cradle in a boatyard somewhere, just waiting to be scraped off. So I've got a picture of it, and I'm happy to report that I've sold a few of them, and this is number 5. This is boat number 5. So look for more of them. I have about 20 boats I'm going to be processing over the next year, and I hope to have a show in October here at Northeam Gallery. Along with our painters, we have some great clay people. Clay in all different shapes and forms. And here's a good example of some of the pottery that's created by 2 of our artists. Sarah Hood, who's going to be on the tour here that you're going to see later, her studio, and Helene Vonnegut. And they both have very different, unique styles. Perrin Collery is another clay artist who also does mosaics, and this is a good example of a piece that she did, a whole series on concrete with laid-in tile and a beautiful mosaic pattern. She has done many commissions around Southern Maryland, and you'll see her work at Anne Marie Gardens here in town, the benches, and our beautiful bench out front. We also have jewelers that are part of our gallery, and this is just a small collection of the jewelry that we have here now, as many of our members are selling it online as well, on their own sites as well as our site. Just a little example of all their work. One of our most prolific artists is Christine Allen, and she has a whole series of books that she has illustrated along with a fellow author. And she's a watercolorist, she's an oil painter. And she's an heirloom gardener farmer. She's one of our most Renaissance women artists, I think, in all of Southern Maryland. This gallery is under development right now. We're changing the colors out. We're taking advantage of our closure, but we are reopening in the near future, and we hope you will look for us on Facebook and on our website and in the advertising section of the paper to find out when we reopen. It'll be a different time, but it'll still be great art, and we look forward to keeping art a part of your life too. Thanks for coming.
Let's meet some of the artists.
My name is Perrin Collery, and I'm a tile artist. I live here in Southern Maryland, and this is my studio. I make relief sculpted decorative ceramic tiles. They are used primarily as works of art in people's homes. Sometimes they are installed in kitchens or bathrooms, things like that. So it is functional tile, but it's also very decorative and very beautiful. So I went to college for art, and I ended up doing graduate school for sculpture, and then I had a hard time finding a job for a number of years, but eventually I made my way to a small tile studio where they made a lot of tile that was used in people's homes and also commercial field tile. And I learned a lot there. I worked there for a number of years, and eventually I was ready to start doing my own designs. And at that same time, my parents down here in Southern Maryland had opened our house where I grew up as a gallery. So it was a perfect timing for me to open my business and start making my own handmade tile designs while my parents had a gallery here and my studio was out back. So it was a nice synergy and a great opportunity for me to have some support while I was starting my business and getting to move back home to Southern Maryland. When I went to school and then graduate school, I focused on sculpture and making larger three-dimensional projects. But when I was finally able to get a job that was in an arts field, it was at this ceramic tile studio. And that became a great opportunity for me to incorporate my interest in making sculptural pieces with having a product that people can use in their homes. So sculpture and fine art, I think, can be a little bit distancing from people. It's a little harder for people to access in their own lives. But having a small individual piece of art, a piece of tile that you can use in your home, makes it more accessible. So I started to think of myself more as a craftsperson, working in the craft field of ceramic arts, and less thinking of myself as a fine artist. And for me, the distinction is about accessibility and usability of the pieces that a person makes. So jewelry, woodwork, ceramics, glass, those are things that we can use in our homes, that we can really embrace in our lives. And for me, that gives me more connection to the people who enjoy my work. And that is how I ended up working with ceramic tile. So this is a project that I'm working on for Frederick County. It's a public art project. I have won a grant to make a series of sculptures that will be installed in 5 different towns in Frederick County. And these are the forms that I've built that will hold a mosaic surface on them. So back there on the wall you can see the designs, the drawn designs for the 5 different sculptures. And the way that these will work will be that they will have a mosaic surface that covers the entire surface of the design. This particular piece will be kinetic, so this particular piece will also have a bike wheel that is functioning and turns. That's a part of the design. And this particular piece is going in a community that has a very big bike riding culture, so I wanted to include the bicycle wheel as part of that design. So as I have continued to develop my career as an artist here in Southern Maryland, I've been fortunate to do a number of public art projects, including, and my first one was the bench project in Leonardtown. It's called the Naturalists Bench, and it is right outside of Town Hall in Leonardtown. It's a beautiful 3-dimensional, fully functional bench that has a fully mosaic surface. And as I said, that piece was the first public art project that I did receive here in Southern Maryland. I've also done a project in Denton, Maryland, which is a very large mural mosaic. And then this is the 3rd piece, which will be in Frederick. So for my inspiration, when I started making art when I was in grad school, I spent a lot of time thinking about modern art and postmodern art, feminism, gender issues, and my art was really focused on those kinds of things, making large, sort of thought-based sculptures. But as I have transitioned to working with clay and working in this Southern Maryland environment, my focus has really narrowed down to be nature-inspired. So I spend a lot of time walking and looking at the everyday things that are around me all the time. Birds, butterflies, bugs, leaves, nuts and berries, all the little things that we see every day in our lives. Those are the things that primarily inspire me at this point. Many of the pieces that I make in the studio are production pieces. In other words, I make an original and then make a plaster press mold, and from that mold I'm able to press pieces and make multiples. But this project that I'm working on right now is a series of one-of-a-kind pieces that are being incorporated in a sculpture project. And so these pieces were just sculpted by me. There was no mold made, and right now we're going to do some glazing. So with the pieces, I always do the background first, and if you've ever done glazing when you were at school, you might remember that you kind of paint one coat and then a second coat and then a third coat on, but I don't do that. Instead, I do this sort of dribbling, pouring method, and I get that glaze on really thick as possible, which is how I get my bright, juicy colors. And the glazes that I use are all my own formulas, so they are unique to my artwork. Nobody else has these colors. And glazing is a chemical process, so unlike paint, the color that you see now is not the color that the piece will be when it's finished. So this color that we're glazing now ends up this darker blue color, and that happens in the kiln process. So the backgrounds get put on first, nice and thick. And then we'll do a little bit of the detail glazing. So once the glaze dries really quickly, and once it's dry, I can just clean it off of the areas where I don't want it. And then, let's get a good brush. Let's try this brush. And then we're going to go in and do the details. And with this particular color, this yellow, I like to add sort of some more dimension to the color. So I'll put one color on, and then I'll switch to a second color and add that second color, which makes things a little bit more as they are in nature. So a little bit less of a one note and a little bit more of a medley of colors, which I think is more how things are in the real world. And then we just repeat this process. Okay, so here we are down in the basement where I have my kiln and also where I have some space to set stuff out. These are all of the finished pieces that I've been producing, working my way through the process of sculpting them, and then they get fired one time, as you saw upstairs, glazed, and then fired a second time, and then once they come out the second time, this is what they look like. So this is sort of the collection of everything I've made so far for the Frederick project. And these pieces will be mosaicked onto the surface of those forms.
Hi, my name is Sarah Hood. Welcome to my clay studio. I've been working in my studio here in Hollywood, Maryland for the last 30 years. It's amazing how time flies when you're having fun. I started out to be a marine biologist in college, and my very last semester in college I took a clay class and I got completely hooked. And I finally figured out why I was born with big hands, because immediately I could create things on the wheel where it took other students like a lot longer to get the even centering or throwing or any of it down. So lucky for me. And then when I graduated from college, I took a job as a marine biologist in Delaware, working for an environmental consulting company, and I found a clay studio, and gosh, I was there 5 nights a week for a couple years until I moved to Maryland. And I had a couple years without clay work while I was working on my master's. And then I stumbled across a used wheel and kiln. And I finished up my master's. And the first thing I did after that was take a summer-long course at the Corcoran and really focusing on the clay work. So that was an interesting education. And I guess my practice and my work has just evolved over time. Because of my background, I decided at some point, I can't remember when, that I was tired of making little blue flowers and that I was going to go whole fish into my work. So that by that I mean fish handles and scales and tails and a lot of fish urns and fish platters and things like that. And oyster platters is something that I've evolved into doing a lot too in the last few years. So it's really been great. I mean, I usually have a list of what I need to do, whether I have orders or shows that I'm getting ready for, or a gallery show, for example, and I will try to create pieces. I work in a series usually, so I might make 4 to 6 or 8 oyster plates at a time. So I've got some over here that are just made and finished, and they're in the drying phase. So every one I do is a little bit different. This one has got little oysters with little pearls. Like, we know that's not real, but it's just kind of fun because I finish them with a mother of pearl glaze, and it makes them really pretty. So this one has oysters. This one's got starfish. So these start out being a thrown piece, and I carve out the oysters and attach some starfish or oysters or seahorses or whatever I'm using. And you know, I kind of sculpt this up into a little bowl. So it's a functional piece. You can use them to serve your oysters. You can put them in the oven carefully, but I would recommend putting them into a cold oven and heating it with the oven. So that's kind of a fun project. I just finished making a batch of mugs, like 12 mugs there. Every one is a little bit different too. Kind of get into making some nautilus or starfish forms. I usually have all sorts of things going. I just fired a bisque kiln at the beginning of the week, so I'd like to show you that, to show you what pieces look like when they've been fired once. So these pieces at this point are greenware. They're made and drying. They're not ready to go in the kiln yet. Probably by Monday they'll be ready to be fired the first time. So each piece is fired a minimum of twice. So there's a bisque firing, then a glaze firing, and then if I'm using some gold or mother of pearl, then that's an additional firing. And that's a low temperature, but the glaze firing is up to 2,240 degrees, which makes it a mid-range stoneware. So it's really functional, very durable. Much more durable than flower pots that are fired to 1,800 degrees. Those are really pretty fragile. So my work is all pretty durable. I'd like to show you where I fire my pieces in an electric kiln. I do the 2 firings out there, and that's in this next room. So I'd like to take you over there and show you that. Okay, so these pieces were fired a couple days ago. They've been bisque fired, and these are some of the pieces that I'll be working on glazing in the next couple days. Probably I'll get to them early next week, but it will take me a whole day. So I've been getting into doing these looping handles, and sometimes I'll put some leaves or floral decorations on them. This one I was kind of thinking of a Jack in the Pulpit. So I kind of made it stripy, so I'll try to glaze it so it looks like that. So I've got a bunch of pieces like that in here. So when people talk about throwing pots, this is the part that they mean about throwing. You take your bowl of clay and you throw it onto the wheelhead and you smack it down, and I kind of can slap center it a bit. And the clay is pretty soft, so it should be fairly easy to center. So that's the hardest part for people to learn when they're learning how to make pots. Getting the clay centered so that it's all even. It's always harder to do this when people are watching too. always. So it'll get into line, get all the clay particles lined up pretty quickly. Unless the bat's going to vibrate on me. So it's a matter of pushing down. And pulling it up. See, it's pretty lined up now. It's not bumping and wobbling like it was. It's really hard to make a pot if it's not centered properly. I still am feeling a wobble, but I'm just going to go for it. So I recycle all my clay too. I used to just throw bags and bags of clay shards into the gully, and that was pretty wasteful, so I stopped doing that. Now I recycle everything and re-wedge it up, and I get some exercise in my upper body that way, I guess. Okay, so it's pretty centered. I'm going to just open that up. Of course, I wedge this up, recycle this clay, so it probably has lumps and stuff in it. Usually I have a list of things I'm going to do every time I come into the studio. And so some days I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to be working on berry bowls. Other days I'm working on vases. Other days I am working on platters or oyster plates. I mean, there's any number of things I can be doing. So when you're a potter, you try to keep your production stream going so that you have every week. I usually try to have a load of work that will go into the bisque kiln, and then at the end of the week, after it comes out of the bisque kiln, I'll get it glazed. Meanwhile, I'm still producing a whole other load a week that'll get that will get fired the following week. So I try to keep up a pretty good production flow when I'm getting ready for shows. Of course, this year all bets are off because all the shows are canceled. So that makes it difficult to know where the market will be this year. Seems like the online website for the gallery is a pretty good thing. So now I'm just pulling up the pot, pulling up the walls. I want to get it as thin as possible, and I'll be making like a bulbous form, like a vase that's kind of really rounded and inflated looking, with as small as neck as I can manage. It's important to keep the hands really slippery so that they don't get stuck on the clay and throw things off. So the taller and thinner you get, the slower you go. So usually throwing the pot is the fastest part. Then there's the trimming after it's dried for a while, and then finishing and putting on handles if it's going to have handles, and then you have to let it dry. And then go into the bisque firing, the kiln for the first firing. And then that usually takes about a day for it to fire and cool down again. And then it usually takes a full day or more to do glazing for a load. And then a glaze firing takes like 16 hours or so before it's up to temperature, and then it takes like 24 to cool down. So, you know, like really it takes a full week to get a load of stuff done. It's a lot of fun. Throwing is a lot of fun. It just feels really good. So I started with about 3 pounds of clay. I know from experience about how much it takes to do things. Like one of my big platters takes 7 or 8 pounds to get like a 14-inch platter. And then of course everything shrinks. You have to account for the shrinkage. So it looks a little bit bigger now than it'll end up, but shrinkage is 12%. So I have to calculate that if I'm trying to make things fit. They always have to be mindful of that shrinkage. Now I'm just completely smoothing this and doing the final shaping. And I'll just narrow it down. I'm going to narrow the mouth down a little bit more. And then do a little trimming right on the wheel. And then leave it to dry. So I'm trying to get all the water out of the bottom, because that can cause cracking, which you don't ever want in a pot. Maybe I'll do a little, trying to decide which direction. There we go. Sometimes I'd like to put in some make it look a little bit more fluid. I'll go back and define these marks later. Whoop, come back here. One more. I just like the process of making marks on the clay. You know, it makes it interesting. So I'll groove those a little bit deeper when it sets up, and so it'll be even more defined, and I'll give it an interesting foot before cutting it off. There you go. And that's off. Okay, turning off the gas. Really hot. It's really important to have everything laid out so I can just do it. So the pot is really hot. It's like glowing molten hot on the inside. And it looks kind of blah right now, but let's see what happens. It should have all sorts of flashes of like purple and red. blue. Okay, and then that is just let it rest for a while. Okay, the big reveal. Let's see if it came out. Oh, got some good colors. Wow, it's like super coppery. It's just really, really coppery. I think it got so hot, it didn't vary a lot. Except for on the bottom, the cooler area there has got a little bit more rainbow effect. You can see it's getting a little bit more rainbowy as it's exposed to the air. So this process, when you put a hot pot into a can like this and cover it, is reduction. So you're using up all the oxygen. The pot is using up all the oxygen in there because it flames, and the flames use the oxygen, and that allows the glaze to turn black, and the glazes with copper and other metals to flash metallic color. So pieces come out different. You never really know what to expect with raku. Every piece, even if you fire two identical pieces in the same glaze and the same firing and put them in two different pots, they're going to look different. You know, just you can tell they're the same family, but they're going to have a little variation. So that's that process, which is fun, interesting. So I'll just let it cool off the rest of the way and clean it up. Thanks for coming by and seeing me at my studio today. I'm glad we had a nice day for you to see both inside and outside operations. You can find my work at the Northeam Gallery on our website right now and in our physical store when we reopen. So the northeamgallery.com, and also my website, sarahhoodpottery.com. And you can call me or email me with special orders as well. So email is selhood, HOUDE @gmail.com.
Hi, welcome to my studio. I'm Jim Dusart, one of the artists at Northeam Gallery. This is Moon River Studio. We've built it on our property behind our house here on St. George Island. We bought our house here on St. George Island 26 years ago. The studio, though, is new for me. We just built it about 5-6 years ago so that I have a place that's dedicated to making art. So our house here is a 1940s cottage that was one bedroom when we bought it. We expanded up into the attic first, and then Isabel came and just about washed the waterside porch off and filled the dining room with mud. So we quickly decided we needed to raise her up a little higher, so we've raised her up. And then on the footprint of the old bathroom, we built this 3-story tower. And it's really, the purpose of it was to have a spot to go and just look at the view. There's no other reason for that room to be up there. But I quickly found that it was a fabulous place to paint. And so I used to paint up there. But, you know, Friday night, Saturday night comes around and it's happy hour time, so I'd have to move all my stuff out of the tower. So that's why the studio was born, so that the tower could stay a family place. So this is the current piece I'm working on. Some found parts and pieces, old clock parts and goat cart wheels and meat grinder handle. And all these things just become part of the story for me. And I've always been a collector of parts and pieces and things, and you know, my house is just this like curio cabinet of odd stuff. But for me, it's the stories, and so I'm like, you know, where did these feet come from? And so as I'm putting these clocks together, the stories come together in my mind, and so that becomes part of the clock. The clocks each get a story, and this one doesn't have a story yet. I haven't quite figured him out yet. But all my other clocks, you'll see, have tales, and a lot of them are sort of childhood memories. You know, when I visited my grandparents' farm, the one that, you know, had some farm pieces on it. My dad delivering groceries, there was one with some red wagon in it, and so it's just all, you know, bits and pieces from my history that come together that aren't the real history of these pieces. But, you know, I just scour the antique shops and garage sales and eBay now because I'm not going out in public with COVID. But and just find parts and pieces. And then this place, this is where they all come together and they start. I just start putting them together, pieces side by side, until a thought starts gelling for me. And so this one, I still don't know its story. So what usually happens is I get the clock to where I like it, and then the story's coming together. But if it's just not quite a good enough story, then the clock ends up getting another piece, until I'm happy with the story and the clock. All is one and the same. And so this table is where I start putting clocks that are getting there, that are almost together, and so that I can just keep looking at them every day and think about what they need. And so this one, I found this beautiful carved head, and for some reason, I don't know why, it seemed like the north wind to me. So it became kind of a weather clock, if you will. So I found these old barometer and thermometers in the shape of ship's wheels. So I carved out the base of the clock so that they can go on here like this. And then what I hope to do is get a light in here and light up these clock gears. The clock is now inserted into the barometer. This one day I want to take out the insides and make it all glow, and I'm kind of thinking some FDR theme, fireside chat, something along those lines. Don't know. Found this beautiful old pigeon cage at the Big Flea this year. This one's going to have a speaker inside, so you can do a Bluetooth radio, and then it'll have a clock coming down from it somehow. I gotta do another one with toys. I love these old tin toys, so it's just kind of the colors and the shapes, and then eventually I don't. Someday they just become a thing, and they become a clock. Fascinated with old tin toys, wheels, carts, candlesticks, old clock cases. Anything old and grungy, the more patina, just sort of suggests more of a story for me. Living on St. George, it influences my art. I also like to paint, and so I'm constantly painting marsh scenes, water scenes, cloudscapes, photos that my dog Walker, my husband, takes in the morning before I get up. I use as inspiration for some of my shots. This painting is one that I'm working on right now that's just about a quarter-mile down the road in the marsh on the island, and so that greatly influences my subject matter here. I paint exclusively in acrylics. I started painting with oils, and it just frustrated me no end because they take forever to dry, and that's just not me. So this, I found acrylics, and it just fit me to a T. I love painting with acrylics, and I end up with acrylic paint all up and down my arms and all across the floor. It doesn't matter because it's just acrylic. Hopefully the best parts of the paint end up on the canvas, but some days they do, some days they end up on the floor. I've always been a collector, and so things just fascinate me, and I just like to repurpose them rather than let them end up in landfills or out in somebody's garage and nobody ever sees them. They never see the light of day again. This is a quick look at my work. I hope some of it inspired you. If you want to see finished pieces, please stop by Northeam Gallery's website, or when we're back open again, go by the gallery. We'd love to see you there.
That's it for this episode of Discovering Leonardtown. Join us next time as we continue our look at the arts and entertainment scene in this small southern Maryland town.